Hello, everyone. GM. Welcome back to another episode of Overpriced JPEGs. This is your weekly recap. We are going to talk about everything that has happened in the world of NFTs over the past week, or at least everything that I think is important, the state of the market, what's going on with ENS domain names, and frankly, why I think it's overhyped, and an upcoming project that I think you should know about, as well as a whole bunch of other things. So we are going to get right into it right after we hear this word from our sponsors.
Immutable X is the layer 2 platform for crypto gaming. Immutable offers massive scalability with up to 9,000 transactions per second and instant transaction confirmation. No more gas fees, no more waiting around for your transaction to clear. Immutable's zero knowledge rollup finally unlocks the world of crypto gaming. Immutable X is the only gas-free NFT minting platform with over 26 million NFTs minted, all with zero gas fees. With the power of Immutable, gaming developers don't also need to become smart contract developers. They just need to plug in to Immutable's API and instantly start unlocking the full potential of crypto assets inside of games. This is why world-class companies and projects have decided to deploy on Immutable X, like GameStop, Ember Sword, Planet Quest, Illuvium, TikTok, and many more behind the scenes. So start building your game on Immutable X today at immutable.com. There is a brand new staking feature in the Ledger Live app today. We all like staking the assets that we're bullish on, and now you can stake 7 different coins inside the Ledger Live app. Cosmos, Polkadot, Tron, Algorand, Tezos, Solana, and of course, Ethereum. With Ledger Live, you can take money from your bank account, buy your most bullish crypto asset, and stake that asset to its network, all inside the Ledger Live app. Through a partnership with Figment, Ledger also lets you choose which validator you want to stake your assets with. And Ledger is running its own validating nodes, offering a convenient way to participate in network validation, and it even comes with slashing insurance. Ledger Live is truly becoming the battle station for the bankless world, so go download Ledger Live. If you have a Ledger already, you probably already have it, and get started securely staking your crypto assets.
Okay, volumes may be low, but spirits are high. And what I mean by that is volume is trash right now. We are seeing like $11 million a day. I think that's on the low end, somewhere between like $11 million and $20 million in transactions per day in the NFT space, which is really low compared to where we were months ago at the height of last year. But frankly, I think a lot of projects are holding up better than we maybe would have expected given those volumes. So we're looking over here at some of the top performing NFTs. You're seeing Bored Ape Yacht Club. No surprise, it's a lot of blue chips. It's Bored Apes, it's Other Side, it's Mutant Apes, it's Punks, it's CloneX. We're going to talk about why they're doing well a little later on today. Azukis, are they blue chip? We could debate it. But you're seeing a lot of these classic projects really hold their value. And I want to, of course, flag art blocks here as well. My friend Zeneca is super bullish on art blocks. I've really become persuaded to that style of thinking. I think generative art is something that will really hold its value in the long run. And so if you're willing to wait it out, it's going to be a good investment, and it's holding up even now. So clearly this is a popular thesis because we're seeing art blocks do quite well relative to other projects here in the bear market. I interviewed Kai Turner. That interview will be coming out next week. He's working on a new generative art project, platform, gallery. You can learn more about it. So that's exciting to me. We're also seeing the rise of free mint NFTs. I think God hates NFTs. This is a project, for example, it's down. It's number 24 right now in terms of volume, but this was like Goblin Town, like Wizards. If you followed some of these projects, you have a free mint and then they pump up. And then I think what we've tended to see is that the price has then come back down. Some of these have pumped up to over an ETH. I think God hates NFTs at its peak was at like 1.5 ETH, and it's back down more in the 0.3 ETH range. Goblin Town arguably is the exception to that. At its peak, it pumped up to, I think, 8 ETH, something like that. It's now down to 3 ETH, but it's been hovering around 3 ETH. I think last I checked, it was at 2.9 ETH. It's been hovering around 3 ETH for quite some time now. So I think that's one that may defy the odds in terms of these free mints that pump and then fall. It seems like it will have staying power. Obviously, we've talked a ton about Goblin Town on this show because it was the hottest thing for a long time there. Let's drill down now on Ethereum name service specifically and why ENS domains have been absolutely blowing up lately. If you haven't been paying attention, porno.eth sold for 184 ETH. It was a little over $200,000 at the time. It was like one of the biggest NFT sales for that week. Since then, we've had 0.00000.eth sell for 300 ETH. We had paradigm.eth sell for 420 ETH. But if you look through here, and if you're just listening to this on the pod, I'm showing the top selling ETH domain names here on my screen. 3 and 4 letter domains are going like gangbusters. And specifically, you're seeing a lot of domains with numbers like 933.eth, 637.eth, 222.eth. And some of this seems to have originated from this premise or from this fact that I believe in Dubai, apparently it's a big flex to have 3-digit license plate numbers. So in some of the Middle East, I think is where this is coming from. That's something that's really desirable. And you have folks who are anticipating then that because that's true for license plates, that it'll also be true for domain names, and that these 3-digit like numerical ETH addresses are going to be really popular. I have to be honest, I'm kind of skeptical of this line of thinking. I think, first of all, it's so important to realize that buying ENS domain names is very speculative at this point. Obviously, everything in this space, everything in NFTs is speculative. But I would argue that something like a CryptoPunk, there's a real logic there in the sense that this is a historical piece of artwork that I think will remain really relevant for decades and centuries to come, like a Picasso does or something like that. But this ENS domain name thing, this logic that because somebody cares about a license plate number that's 3 digits, they're going to care about an ENS domain name that's 3 digits. I don't know. That feels like kind of tenuous logic to me. With that being said, I think there is real logic to investing in these ENS domain names if you're willing to wait for many years to see if the bet pays out. But I don't think we're looking in the right places necessarily when we're talking about buying 222.eth. So here's why. I think of ENS domain names, they have a real functional purpose to them, right? It's to make it easier to send somebody money or tokens or to look at their wallet. Instead of having to send it to some long string of numbers and letters, I can go send it to cryptocarly.eth, which is one of my ENS domain names, right? And that's a lot easier. And in that way, it reminds me a lot more of an email address or a social media handle. And when I think about what's popular for email addresses or social media handles, flexes in that world tend to be like having your name, right? So I forget who it is, who has Adam on Twitter, who's like there's somebody who's at Adam on Twitter, for example, where like that's a big flex. Like it's your name, so it's super easy, it's super functional. I was looking at who has 000 on Twitter. It doesn't exist, right? 000 on Twitter doesn't exist. I don't think it exists on Instagram. I looked on Instagram. I sent an email to 000@gmail.com and I got a bounce back. And nobody notices because nobody really cares about 000, in my opinion. And then on top of that, when I think about where if ENS remains relevant, if Ethereum takes over the way we all hope it takes over and or expect it to take over, and if Ethereum name service remains prominent when that happens, when I think about who's going to want to pay big money for this stuff, it's brands, right? Like nobody's really going to care if 000 if they don't have 000. But Advil will certainly freaking care if somebody else has Advil.eth because it's going to mess with their wallet. It's going to be confusing if they're transacting through that wallet. Like the big brands are where I think you have a really good chance of seeing value accrual because brands have money and they're going to want to pay for that. Advil cares that they have Advil.com. That's the other comparison you hear all the time, right? I gave the comparison to social media handles, but you could maybe argue the better comparison, though I'm not sure I agree with this, but the better comparison is for Web2 domain names, right? Web addresses. Advil, I'm sure, paid a hell of a lot of money to get Advil.com, Adidas to get Adidas.com, et cetera, et cetera. So it strikes me that if you're going to spend hundreds of ETH on a domain name, and it's a speculative bet that it's going to go up in value, you're much better off buying the domain names of brands who are, in theory, ultimately going to want these and have the resources to do it than to like flex by having 000.eth. I just think that this is a play that the OGs care about. We care to flex that we were here early enough to have gotten 0.eth or whatever, but that in the future, that isn't something that people are really going to want. So if folks are buying 933.eth for a bunch of Ethereum because they actually love the number 933 and that's the persona they want to flex online, great. But otherwise, I think this is a really stupid speculative play and that there's way better ways to spend your ETH if you're trying to make money in the long term. The last thing I want to say on this is there are some interesting social signaling use cases for domain names that I think have gotten maybe not as much attention as maybe they deserve as we're having this whole ENS bubble. And I talked about it with Carlini, who is the founder of Penelope's Country Club. And Carlini has done something with Penelope's Country Club, which is he bought .pcc.eth. He bought the subdomain .pcc.eth. So .pcc standing for Penelope's Country Club, .eth obviously. And now if you own a Penelope's, you can actually register for a .pcc.eth domain. So I could be carly.pcc.eth. And then you can flex that on Twitter, for example, or wherever I suppose that you are going to put a handle like that. And it becomes another way to identify with a particular community outside of simply using it for your profile picture. So Carlini is a huge advocate of this. He gave the example on this podcast a couple months ago that like, hey, imagine if Bored Ape Yacht Club did this. They own the BAYC.eth subdomain. They could start a trend where everybody puts .bayc.eth as their name on Twitter. And it gives people options and ways to flex that they're part of the community without just having to change their profile picture, for example. So I understand there's social signaling pieces of this. I'm just dubious that 637.eth socially signals the same way that, frankly, just having carly.eth would, or having porn.eth does. That I understand feels more of a flex to me. So we'll see if this bet plays out for folks, if the people who like having 3-digit license plate numbers are then also super vying for 3-digit Ethereum addresses. And if there's something I'm missing about this, if there's another argument for buying these short, 3 and 4-digit 888 whatever addresses, let me know. I just don't think in the long run people are going to be all that impressed by it. They're not going to be like, oh wow, you must have been so early, you got 833.eth. But I think saying like, hey, I got carly.eth or I have nike.eth, that to me feels like it's a clear flex. And in the case of like Nike or Amazon.eth, this one makes sense to me. Amazon.eth seems like a no-brainer that is something Amazon will want one day and pay a lot of money for. Those are where I think you can ultimately make some money, not in these short number ones. This next story that I want to talk about comes from an article that was published at Polygon.com. It's called How Minions Beat Disney at the Copyright Game. And if you're interested in the CCO debate, if you're following the conversation around licensing and the different strategies around licensing in the NFT world, then I think this is a really interesting article to pay attention to. It, of course, came from my friend John Rogers, who sent it over to me. And basically, this article is arguing that Universal is employing a better strategy than Disney when it comes to how strict they are about enforcing their copyright licenses. So Disney is notoriously very, very strict. They once, and this article mentions this, they once sued a daycare center in Florida or a series of daycare centers in Florida that were using like Disney characters that had Mickey Mouses on the wall in some capacity, that were in some capacity using Disney characters. And this really did not endear Disney to the local Florida residents who felt like this was unnecessarily harsh to go after these daycare centers simply for using these characters. And by contrast, Universal, who owns Minions, seems very permissive in allowing really anything to use the Minion character on their storefronts, on their merchandise. I'll read from this article here. It says, if aliens ever discover our deserted planet at some point in the future, they may mistake minions for a hieroglyphic language our species once used to communicate. The babbling sidekicks from Despicable Me and its spin-offs can be seen on Facebook mental health pages, on Instagram posts announcing a baby was born, on the sides of landscaping trucks. They're on party supply store balloons, bakery chalkboards, QAnon protest signs, cannabis dispensary window murals, where they all look higher than usual, et cetera, shot glasses. So the point is that Universal won't go after folks when they use the Minion symbol on all of these different things. And it's interesting to note that even QAnon protest signs are in there because that's obviously quite political. I think something we hear, or one of the concerns for folks who are opposed to maybe CCO or some of these more permissive rights structures is, they might get co-opted by, right-wing brands or political ideologies in some sort of nefarious way, and that will kill the brand overall. And on the one hand, I think that this Minions Disney comparison is maybe showing that that's not necessarily true. That as long as you have some level of a central brand, so if you look at I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good example of this. I think people would argue this about bullet maps, so maybe it's not the best example I could think of, right? Like you do have Dom Hoffman and some central structures who are putting forth like a central vision for what bullet maps might be. So even if some QAnon protester ends up trying to use some of those symbols, it doesn't mean that the world is going to look at blip maps and associate it with QAnon. In fact, all that arguably is happening is that more people are becoming familiar with these symbols or these characters, and it's just becoming a greater part of the popular consciousness. That's the argument that in some ways, or that I'm extrapolating from this Polygon article. So I think that's really interesting as somebody who thinks a lot about CCO and is sometimes kind of dubious of it. Now, on the flip side of this, I guess it's important to obviously say that Universal has not quite literally put minions in the public domain. So I was looking this up and I was saying, hey, have there been any lawsuits where Universal has actually gone after somebody or gone after a company, for example, for using minions? And they have. And I found this article. It was the only one I could find. But it looks like Universal did go after a food manufacturer in Asia that I guess I can't see this article anymore, but there was a food manufacturer in Asia who was quite literally commercializing minions and using minions as their logo, putting it on their packaging, on their brand, and really commercializing the use of minions in that way. And ultimately, Universal did go after them. Now, I don't know, there may have been other issues there too. Maybe they were concerned about the quality of the food, something else. So they are drawing the lines somewhere, Universal is. And it just makes me think that there's maybe this interesting middle ground that Universal is towing where these characters are not in the public domain. They technically do have copyrights around them, but Universal is just being very lax in how they're enforcing it. And that feels like probably the middle ground, arguably, you find with something like a Doodles, which of course I praise all the time. People know I'm not a Doodles holder. I just think they've done a lot really right. Where Doodles says, okay, you can commercialize your Doodle up to $100,000, but if you want to go beyond that, come talk to us. We may let you do it, but we do want to have a little bit more control over it. And so I think arguably their Minions is doing something along those lines, whereas Disney is being super, super strict about it. And ultimately that Disney model probably is not what's going to survive best in this next era and in this blockchain era. Now, it's interesting, while we're talking about licensing and rights, you have Artifact announced, I guess this past week, that CloneX holders will now have full rights over their NFTs rather than it being limited up to that certain commercial amount, which is this approach that I think like a Doodles takes and does very well. CloneX is being much more permissive now. They're saying, great, go forth, take your CloneX characters, do whatever you want with them. CloneX has been pumping a bit this week. I don't know if that has something to do with it, but I would assume that is the reason for this CloneX pump. And it'll be interesting to see what comes out of it. And they're putting out all sorts of materials to like further spur and encourage the creativity of folks who own their CloneX characters. And again, it's all a big experiment that we will continue to track. Next up here, I want to run through quickly a few stories that I think are worth flagging. Reddit announced they are launching a new NFT avatar marketplace. I think this is not Reddit's first foray into NFTs. And of course, Alexis Ohanian, who is their founder, has invested in a number of different NFT projects and invested in the crypto space more broadly. But this is still good news. I mean, I think Reddit is a natural fit for entering this space. They have partnered with Polygon on this one, which I think is interesting. And they're also allowing you to use credit or debit cards to purchase these avatars, to purchase these NFTs. So it's not, you're not reliant on having a crypto wallet. Generally speaking, I tend to be favorable towards this kind of approach because I think we need to onboard as many new people as possible into this space, and making it accessible through things like credit and debit cards is obviously a great way to do that. On the flip side, there are concerns with, security if you're not doing something directly on an Ethereum or a layer 2 of Ethereum. If you're doing something like Polygon, which is a side chain, my understanding is they're using the side chain portion of Polygon, not Polygon's layer 2, which is still in development. You maybe have some security concerns. But in general, obviously excited about this, bullish anytime you have a big brand like a Reddit do something in the space. World of Women has had some announcements. They airdropped something called a capacitor. We don't really have a lot of details as to what this is, but they airdropped capacitors. It was supposed to be to both World of Women holders and World of Women Galaxy holders, but then Galaxy holders never got theirs. And they tweeted some message, World of Women did, that said, oh no, it looks like the delivery of the capacitors for World of Women Galaxy got thwarted. This tweet was accompanied by this video, this kind of creepy video of some supervillain laughing about the fact that she had thwarted the capacitors to World of Women Galaxy holders. So I think there's sort of this ongoing question around, was there some sort of mistake where World of Women Galaxy holders were supposed to get these capacitors but didn't, and now they're covering up the mistake by having this cool storyline? Or was this always what was intended, and there's more that's going to be revealed here as part of this sort of villainous storyline. I'm not sure. I think I land on the camp that says this was intentional, but really, I don't know for a fact. I have not asked anybody with any senior knowledge of this. World of Women also announced that they were going to be partnering with Hasbro to make a Monopoly game, which is pretty cool. I was a huge Monopoly fan growing up. I also had some of the Monopoly offshoots. Like I had Dogopoly and Wild Animalopoly. So I like kind of fun Monopoly spinoffs. This would actually be something I would consider buying, would be a World of Women Monopoly game. And some of the initial art looks cool, though I don't think it's official. Yam Karkai or World of Women, one of them had tweeted out some examples of what a World of Women Monopoly board might look like, though they said those were just prototypes and did not actually represent the final board. Moving on to other news this week, Moonbirds. So there was I'm talking about this only because I like to defend Ryan Carson, because I think there's just a lot of confusion about Ryan Carson out there in the world. And so there was this tweet that did quite well, nearly 1,000 likes, 60 retweets. It had a lot of engagement that said, I try to not be controversial on here, but does anyone else not find it odd that Ryan Carson swept 750 ETH of Moonbirds 2 days before a major patent comes out that implies something is coming, which has caused massive FOMO and an insane floor price spike. So Moonbirds has been pumping lately. I think there's a couple reasons for that. One of the reasons is that Ryan Carson did sweep the Moonbirds floor. And so this person's suggesting that there was insider trading going on and that Ryan Carson was privy to insider information, and that's why he purchased these. And isn't this suspicious? Now, I think insider trading in the NFT world is an important topic because we see it. It's rampant. It's frustrating. John Rogers and I have talked about it on the show even recently because we've seen it with Yuga Labs quite a bit. This is not a case of insider trading. I want to say this so strongly, and others, thankfully, are also pointing this out. Ryan has been very, very clear for a long time that his fund, 121G, is that what it is? 1220G? Sorry, I should know this. 121G, yeah. 121G would be buying significant amounts of Moonbirds as well as some other blue chip NFT projects. And Ryan himself sold off all his entire personal collection of Moonbird NFTs just so that he wouldn't have conflicts of interest. He said that sometime in early July, he was going to be purchasing a whole bunch of Moonbirds, and he's literally just delivered on that promise. He then tweeted out saying, I had no advanced knowledge of anything that was going to be coming out. So this whole thing is just BS. And again, there seems to be negative reactions to Ryan's tweets regularly that I think are really coming from misinformed places. I had a conversation about this with somebody at NFT NYC who I was able to kind of persuade. I think people don't have full information. I've met Ryan. I think he's lovely. And this seems to be just another example of people misinterpreting his actions. So I wanted to clear that up, as well as obviously acknowledge the fact that Moonbirds is pumping and been doing quite well the last week or so. Okay, next story as we move quickly along here before I get into one final project I really want to dive into and put on your radar. OpenSea. Couple pieces of news coming out of OpenSea. We have Alex Atala, who is one of the founders of OpenSea, announcing that he will be stepping away from the company in the next month or so. He's going to remain on the board. I think there was some speculation as to whether this was a bad thing, whether it was a sign of OpenSea's decline. There has been some bad news that has come out of OpenSea recently. They had this issue where Bored Ape Yacht Club NFTs were being delisted. I think it was something like 6,000 or so of them, 3,000 of them, something like that. Bored Ape Yacht Club NFTs were randomly delisted from OpenSea, which caused some panic that was quickly rectified and sounded like it was just some technical glitch. They also had a phishing scam or they had a data breach recently that I'll say something on. So people were like, is Alex leaving because it's bad or there's some negative things going on? I don't think so. What he said here is that he's ready to build again from 0 to 1. And I think that really is I take him at his word for this, that basically he's leaving because when you start a company from scratch and you build it to 10 employees, that's a very different kind of a company than when it starts to look to maybe IPO someday and it's going in and it's hiring many, many more employees. It's just a different beast. And it seems like he clearly he enjoys that early stage startup world and wants to do that again. So congratulations to Alex. I'm sure he'll do awesome things here in the future. We'll look forward to keeping an eye out for him. This OpenSea phishing scam that I want to mention, or really it's a data breach. So I guess OpenSea uses a platform called Customer.io. Let's see if I have something here. Yeah, they use Customer.io to manage their emails and their newsletter, I suppose. And apparently there was an employee at Customer.io that illegally downloaded a bunch of email addresses from OpenSea's account and sold them, or I don't know if we know if they sold them, but shared them in some capacity with third-party providers. So this is like a big deal if that's true, and that person should obviously be criminally prosecuted. It sounds like the law enforcement's been informed, and there may be more to come out of this. But obviously, just a reminder to please be careful with any emails you get. I have to say, I have in the last month gotten all sorts of weird emails. Like I got one yesterday telling me that, oh, your $2,000 deposit is incoming. You can check the dashboard here. Like just things that, if you're not paying attention might sound enticing, or like I've gotten fake invoices like, hey, your invoice or your bill has been paid to review, check here. And it looks like I've just paid $400 for something and it's obviously fake. So I've definitely seen an uptick in just like weird emails that I've been getting since entering this space, which obviously is a little bit disturbing. So please just always be vigilant, be careful. If you have ever signed up for something on OpenSea, it's possible that your information was a part of this leak. So please be extra vigilant.
COINSHIFT is a leading treasury management and infrastructure platform for DAOs and crypto businesses who need to manage their treasury operations. Every crypto org needs to manage their treasury, and COINSHIFT offers a simple, flexible, and efficient multi-chain treasury management platform built on top of the extremely secure Gnosis Safe. With COINSHIFT, your organization can go from primitive single-chain treasuries to expressive, flexible, multi-chain features such as global user management, global contracts, proposal management, and many other features that can be shared across an entire organization. COINSHIFT layers on powerful treasury management tools on top of the proven security of Gnosis Safe, allowing users to save time and reduce operational burdens and gas costs. COINSHIFT even has data tools like account reporting across the 7 chains on which it operates. Used by industry powerhouses such as Uniswap Grants, Balancer, Consensus, and Messari, COINSHIFT is speeding up the coordination and efficiency of the organizations that use it. In DeFi, you have to keep up with the frontier, and COINSHIFT makes that easy. So sign up at coinshift.xyz/bankless. Did you know that you can buy crypto directly on almost any blockchain using MetaMask? We all use MetaMask on Ethereum. But did you know you can buy all the popular assets across all the popular chains straight from the MetaMask mobile wallet? Did you know that you could do this from over 260 available regions? So now you know that MetaMask helps you buy over 90 cryptocurrencies using bank cards, credit cards, Apple Pay, Google Pay for whenever you need some quick crypto, whether you're stranded without gas or you just need that NFT or you want to tinker with some new application. MetaMask saves you time and gas costs by buying your favorite crypto asset straight from the mobile wallet. So check it out at metamask.io/buy-crypto.
All right. One of our final stories tonight is about 9gag venturing into NFTs. So for folks who, like me, actually really were not very familiar with 9gag, it seems like it's sort of a Reddit type site. It's a Hong Kong-based company that just allows for the proliferation of user-generated content. You can, shuffle on the website and memes pop up. It's very meme-based. You can then upvote things, downvote things, leave comments. Again, very Reddit-esque in many ways. Or, I think you could argue maybe even sort of 4chan-y in some way. Very, very internet culture-based. And about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago now, probably, they made their initial foray into NFTs with a project called You the MVP. It was a play on the popular meme when Kevin Durant gave his NFT, or when Kevin Durant gave his MVP speech, he said, "You the real MVP." And that, of course, became like popular in modern culture, whatever. And so they launched this You the Real MVP NFT that seems like it is being viewed like sort of an alpha group style NFT. It's like the early community for 9gag NFT folks. And it's now sitting at like a 23 ETH floor. So it feels like people are viewing this like an Admit One or a Proof Collective or a Metaverse HQ, that this is this really tight community. There's only 420 of them, 420, that have access to this very exclusive group. And then they've launched this, 9gag has launched this sort of broader, it seems like, umbrella org that they're calling Memeland, which is their Web3 initiative. And so You the Real MVP here was the first drop within this sort of Memeland umbrella. But they've also said that they're going to launch a Memeland NFT that'll be like your more traditional 10,000, I think it's going to be 9,999 PFPs that will get you access to a marketplace and future Memeland drops. Now, I have to say, it took me a while to kind of get to the bottom of what was going on here, because it's a little bit confusing, because seemingly in the very not too far future, in the very near future, they're launching a free mint NFT called Potatoes. And so, like right now, you can go on to Premint, for example, and sign up for the raffle to get on the whitelist for Potatoes. Potatoes is going to just cost gas. And they haven't really said all that much as to what Potatoes is about. But it's getting a bit of attention. Like I've seen a number of people tweeting about it, seemingly excited about it. What's confusing here is that Potatoes now is coming before the Memeland PFP project. So it's Potatoes by Memeland. But then Memeland itself is going to be a 10K PFP project that is separate and that hasn't launched. And so for a little while here, I was just kind of getting myself in like circular motion, trying to figure out what Potatoes was versus what Memeland was. And I think where I've landed here is that Memeland has been in the works for a little while as a concept, and that the 9gag team was planning on releasing it, and then the bear market hit. And now they don't really want to release it in the bear market. They're worried about sort of selling out or making the kind of money that they wanted to make on it. So they're jumping on the free mint bandwagon to get people into their ecosystem, right? In order to get on the wait list or the whitelist for the Potatoes drop, you do have to follow Memeland on Twitter. You have to join the Memeland Discord. So it's drumming up attention to Memeland, so they'll have a bigger base from which to draw when they actually drop their Memeland NFT, which I'm assuming they're using as more of like a big time fundraiser. So I actually don't hate this strategy. I think it's actually probably kind of clever. And so there's maybe something to be learned here, which is if you are a project that was going to launch during the bear market, or that was going to launch and the bear market hit, maybe it's worth taking a page from this book, following what's currently in vogue, which is to launch these free mint NFT projects that are kind of memey, Potatoes. I don't know. It sort of feels kind of silly. It's POTATOZ. So it feels like it's trying to capitalize on just like the kind of memey, who gives a fuck kind of energy that we're vibing on these days with like wrecked guys and everything. And that way get more attention to Memeland before they actually launch the Memeland NFT. I don't know. That's all my speculation. Maybe there's some grander plan going on there, but I'm guessing that's what's going on. The other thing that's notable about this project is they have a ton of high profile advisors and investors. So 9gag CEO, who's the founder of 9gag, he's the one behind this entire project. But you have folks like, you have Gary Vee, you have Coco Bear from CyberKongs, you have Kevin Rose, you have Brendan Mulligan of Premint, Tim Ferriss, actually, if you know the podcaster Tim Ferriss, and a number of others. When I initially saw this, I was like dubious. I was like, this seems like it's probably kind of bullshit, and that all of these people that are being listed as advisors and investors in Memeland, this like 10K PFP project, are more realistically probably advisors or investors in 9gag, and the founder is sort of like pretending that they're sort of conflating who's an advisor investor in 9gag with who's an advisor investor in Memeland. I actually reached out to a couple of these folks that I know, and they were like, no, like I did give some advice. I think it's fair to call me an advisor for Memeland as well. So it seems like this is legit. He actually has either had these people advise or invest in some capacity in Memeland. But I do think it's people he's drawing from who have been like supporters of 9gag, the website itself. So in any case, I think this is a worthwhile project for a couple of reasons. One, like I said, I think this is sort of an interesting strategy to, if you feel like you're not going to raise the money you want to raise during this bear market, to do like a free mint project as a way to get more attention to your central project. So I think there's some learnings there. I also think, there's a world where this could be an interesting project in the future. Not 9gag, not dissimilar to Reddit. So obviously has a lot of similarities with just internet culture in general that tend to be into NFTs and into crypto. They have 200 million followers across social channels, over the course of the web in general. So they have a huge audience that they can tap into. Now, success in Web 2 does not at all translate into necessarily there being success in Web 3, but my sense is that this guy, the founder here, Ray, 9gag CEO, is a hustler, and there could be something interesting here. I don't know. I'm not buying in. I'm not bending over backwards to get into the Potatoes drop, but because I'm not seeing exactly what will make this special. But I do think that that it is a little bit different than just your totally standard kind of a project, and with a team that has some sort of track record and is doxed, which I love to see. Our very last story is about stories. And by that, I mean about how the press is covering crypto. I'm sure y'all have been noticing this, but I feel like everywhere I go, I'm seeing like, is crypto dead? Is blockchain dead? And it reminds me what a bubble I'm in, right? Because I'm like, this is so absurd. Like, clearly it's not dead. Go to one of these conferences and you can see how much activity is happening in this ecosystem, how much building is happening. And what really drives me crazy is that all of these articles that say this, right, that are like, oh, is crypto dead? Rarely seem to acknowledge that this happened to the internet, and so that there's precedent for super transformational technologies dropping by 95+%, right? And B, they don't seem to acknowledge that those same internet, those growth stocks have done terribly over the last however many months. Like, they're not asking, is Netflix dead? They're asking, is Netflix going to get acquired? What's the future of Netflix? But not saying, is Netflix dead simply because it's dropped in value by some 70x% or whatever from its peak. In some ways, crypto has fared better over, the pre-COVID to post-COVID period than many equities have. So I'm sure a number of you are seeing that and feeling frustrated by it. I am as well. A couple bright spots in this to me have been actually, on a serious note, Freakonomics just released the Freakonomics podcast, which I'm a fan of, released a 3-part series on blockchain. And I thought they were really fair. I think they did a really good job both covering why skeptics are skeptical, which I've been honest on this podcast. I totally get it. Like, I love Warren Buffett. I understand why this is not Warren Buffett's game. So he does a good job covering that, while also, I think, doing a really valid job of showing why people are bullish about it as well. It's maybe a little bit more skeptical of crypto and blockchain than I am, but I think it was fair. So shout out to Freakonomics as being a bright spot in this generally kind of terrible coverage of crypto and blockchain during this period of time. And then also, I wanted to call your attention to this really funny story. So there were a couple of news outlets, Gizmodo being one, Jezebel being another, that reported this story of a Bored Ape Yacht Club based dating app called Lonely Ape, I think, that had allegedly been shut down during its beta phase because they didn't have enough women signing up, and there were too many men, there weren't enough women, and so the Lonely Ape dating app site was canceled. Yeah, Lonely Ape Dating Club. So both Gizmodo and Jezebel reported on this, and lo and behold, it was a fake story. This whole thing was a troll by the NFT community. I forget. So apparently this was something that Yuga Labs themselves joked about. They joked about like a Lonely Ape Dating Club thing or something app many months ago, but it didn't get a ton of attention. And so somebody just like basically revived the joke. And you had news organizations that actually reported on this and covered it as if it was real. And, of course, trolled the NFT space for how male and what a sausage fest we are and yada, yada, yada. And joke was on them. This actually wasn't even a real story. This was the NFT community making fun of ourselves. And I think this is the thing that I feel like also gets missed when there's press coverage of this space, which is there's a lack of acknowledgement that most of us, or at least the circles I run in, like, we also get what we're self-aware. We get our shortcomings. We're more critical than anybody about what a sausage fest this space is. And when people are critical of NFTs, or like, for example, that the line always goes up YouTube video that made the rounds and was really popular a couple months ago, it's like they seem to think we're not in on the joke and we're not in on the criticisms. And they talk about it like what a crazy scammy space this is, as if we don't also realize it and aren't working hard to fix it. And when you have the smartest minds, you could argue, in the world, and a ton of money that's been thrown at this industry, like, so many of these problems we are going to be able to fix. So in the world of just me frustrated by media coverage these days, it's really been not seeming to be aware that we ourselves are probably most aware of what the shortcomings of this space are. And then it's also failing to acknowledge that there's precedent for these kinds of dips in the past, and that, frankly, equities have fared just as poorly in many ways, and we're not asking our tech equities dead. So anyhow, that's our show. Thank you so much for listening. As always, I'm always particularly grateful when y'all listen to these solo episodes, because it's just such a strange feeling to just talk into this mic, sitting alone here in my office. So anybody who sticks with me through this, I'm very grateful to. And I will catch you next time.